Captain Elias Cade leaned back in his chair on the bridge of the Resolute, his gaze distant as he watched the stars slip past in the depths of space. At 42, with a face weathered by years of service and sharp blue eyes that saw everything, Cade was known for his steady presence and unbreakable loyalty to Earth and its people. But as his second-in-command, Lieutenant Commander Ria Torres, approached him with a message from the Galactic Council, he felt the faint stirrings of dread. "We've received a transmission from the Council, Captain. Priority level Ultra," she said, her voice steady but tinged with tension. Cade gave a slight nod and accepted the data tablet from her. The Galactic Council, a vast assembly of the oldest and most advanced species in the galaxy, had contacted humanity with priority transmissions before, but Ultra was unprecedented. Ultra was reserved for demands, commands, ultimatums. Humanity had only recently been invited into the Council's ranks as the newest and most junior member, and already, whispers of suspicion and condescension had become commonplace. He scanned the message, and with every word, his expression hardened. The message read, "To humanity and its representatives. By decree of the Galactic Council, all young member species must submit tribute upon entering the interstellar community. This tribute is a mark of your loyalty and gratitude. In recognition of our guidance, Earth shall provide technology, minerals, and 1/10 of its fleet to the Council by year's end. Compliance is expected. Tribute. Like a tax for loyalty. A sign of obedience." Cade clenched his jaw, then handed the tablet back to Torres. The bridge was silent, every officer watching him with guarded apprehension. "Gather the senior officers in the war room," he ordered, his tone like steel. "It seems the Council believes humanity should pay for the privilege of existing." Minutes later, the senior officers assembled in the Resolute's war room, a sleek chamber lined with screens and strategic maps of known space. Cade entered last, standing at the head of the table, his hands pressed firmly against its edge. His gaze swept across the room, taking in each of his officers, men and women who had dedicated their lives to Earth's defense and its newfound place in the galaxy. "Ladies and gentlemen, you've all seen the Council's message," he began, his voice steady. "They're demanding a tribute, our technology, resources, and 1/10 of our fleet." Commander Patel, head of engineering, shook his head in disbelief. "Tribute? We're not some primitive species they can bully into submission. We've proven our worth." "Precisely," Cade replied. "They claim it's tradition that all new members must show gratitude. But let's call it what it is, a demand for subservience." Torres crossed her arms, her expression fierce. "So what do we do, Captain? Refusal could be seen as a challenge to their authority." Cade straightened, his gaze resolute. "We stand firm. Humanity didn't crawl out of the cradle, reach the stars, and fight tooth and nail for our place in the galaxy just to bend the knee. They expect us to play by their rules, but they're about to find out that humanity doesn't submit." A murmur of agreement rippled through the room, tempered by the weight of what they were considering. Cade knew the stakes. Defiance could lead to a blockade, or worse, open conflict. The Council's military strength far surpassed humanity's, but something deeper than fear drove him. This wasn't about strategy. It was about dignity. He continued, "We'll send a response directly to the Council. And I want every word to make it clear, humanity is here as equals, not as subjects." Lieutenant Anderson, the communication officer, hesitated before speaking. "Captain, if we refuse, are we prepared for the consequences? The Council's not known for tolerating defiance." Cade met his gaze. "We may be the newest race on the galactic stage, but we didn't earn our place by backing down. If we give in now, we'll never be seen as equals. We have to be clear, Earth will not pay tribute. We will not be ruled." The officers exchanged glances, the gravity of his words settling over them. They understood the risks. Yet beneath the tension, there was a spark of pride, a fierce loyalty that had always bound humanity together. Cade turned to Torres. "Draft our reply? I want it sent to the Council within the hour." An hour later, Cade stood alone on the bridge as the reply was transmitted. He watched the stars outside the viewport, feeling the weight of the decision he'd made. There was no turning back now. Humanity's message had been clear, firm, and defiant. Just as he was about to turn away, the communication system chimed. Torres looked up from her console, her eyes widening. "Captain, we're receiving an immediate response from the Council." Cade raised an eyebrow. "Let's hear it." The screen flickered, and the cold, angular face of High Chancellor Threx Varthol appeared. His eyes, a piercing shade of green, regarded Cade with a look of thinly veiled contempt. "Captain Elias Cade of Earth," he began, his voice low and laced with disdain. "Your response has been received. And it is disappointing." Cade kept his expression neutral, though he felt the weight of Threx's gaze. "Do you understand the gravity of what you've done?" Threx continued. "The Galactic Council exists to maintain peace and order. Your insolence threatens that order." "With all due respect, Chancellor," Cade replied, his tone unwavering, "humanity didn't come to the stars to bow to anyone. We respect the Council and the galaxy's long-standing order, but we will not pay tribute as though we are subjects. Earth is sovereign." Threx's mouth twisted in a cold smile. "Bold words, Captain. But I assure you, defiance has a price." "Perhaps," Cade said, his gaze steady. "But so does dignity." There was a pause, and in that silence, Cade felt the distance between Earth and the galaxy's powers, both literal and metaphorical. Threx's smile faded, replaced by a look of thinly veiled menace. "Very well," Threx said at last. "But understand this, Captain, humanity has set itself on a path of conflict. Should you wish to reconsider, the Council will be waiting. Until then, Earth's future hangs by a thread." The screen went dark, and silence returned to the bridge. Cade took a slow breath, feeling the weight of the Council's threat, but also a flicker of pride. Humanity would not be ruled. They had drawn a line, and no matter the cost, they would stand by it. Turning to his crew, he offered a single nod. "Prepare the Resolute. We may need every ounce of strength we have in the days to come." Captain Elias Cade's footsteps echoed in the vast hall of the Galactic Council chamber. The domed ceiling stretched high above him, adorned with the insignias of each species that had earned a place within this interstellar assembly. Around him, representatives from dozens of worlds, some humanoid, others utterly alien in form, observed his approach with a mixture of curiosity and skepticism. Cade kept his head high, his expression calm, concealing the weight of his mission beneath a mask of unwavering resolve. A low hum announced the arrival of High Chancellor Threx Varthol, who descended from his podium, draped in dark, ceremonial robes that shimmered under the pale light. His gaze bore into Cade, and his expression held an unmistakable hint of contempt. Cade didn't flinch. He was here for one reason: to stand before the Council and deliver humanity's answer in person. "Captain Elias Cade of Earth," Threx intoned, his voice echoing through the chamber. "You stand here as the representative of your people, who have chosen to defy the Council's demand for tribute. Do you understand the implications of such an act?" Cade met Threx's gaze steadily. "I understand, High Chancellor. But I would remind you that humanity does not take lightly to coercion. Our answer remains the same: Earth will not pay tribute. We recognize the Council's authority, but we will not submit to it as lesser beings." A ripple of surprise moved through the Council. Cade caught a glimpse of several alien dignitaries exchanging glances, and he noticed the murmurs, the shared looks of disbelief. Refusing the Council was nearly unheard of. Young civilizations, especially, were expected to comply without question. Threx's lips curved into a thin smile. "Defiance is not a virtue, Captain. The Council is the bedrock of stability for this galaxy, and young species like yours benefit from our protection. Tribute is but a small price to pay for the privilege of existing within our order." "With all due respect, Chancellor," Cade replied, keeping his tone measured, "Earth's history is one of resilience. We've faced challenges that many civilizations would consider insurmountable, and we've never demanded tribute from those we help. Humanity stands by the principle that strength should not be used to subjugate others." Threx's expression darkened. Strength must be tempered with submission to those who wield it wisely, Captain. Arrogance from a fledgling race is neither admirable nor acceptable. Your refusal threatens the Council's unity and, by extension, galactic peace. Is that what this is about, Chancellor? Cade asked, his voice unwavering. Galactic peace? Or is it about ensuring that no race ever rises to challenge the Council's authority? A silence settled over the room, and Cade felt the weight of every gaze upon him. Threx's eyes narrowed, and the Chancellor leaned forward, his voice dangerously soft. Be careful, Captain. It would not be wise to test the patience of those who could erase your species from the stars with a mere command. Cade met his gaze unflinchingly. Respect is earned, Chancellor, not demanded. Humanity came to the stars to stand as equals, not to serve. We recognize the contributions of the Council's species, and we've come in peace. But we will not trade our dignity for safety. Threx's eyes glinted, and his tone turned icy. Then you leave us with little choice. The Council's patience is not limitless, and Earth's refusal cannot go unchallenged. Perhaps, Cade said, his voice steady. But if the Council's peace depends on forcing submission, then maybe it's time someone questioned what this peace truly stands for. A murmur broke out among the Council members, some shifting uncomfortably in their seats. Threx raised his hand, and the room fell silent. He regarded Cade for a long moment, as though sizing him up, a predator assessing its prey. Very well, Threx said at last, his voice heavy with finality. The Council will impose a trade embargo on Earth. No resources, no technology, no assistance from any Council member will reach your world. You will find yourselves isolated, Captain, and perhaps then, Earth will reconsider its place. Cade's jaw tightened. He had anticipated something like this. An embargo was a calculated move. It would cripple Earth's ability to maintain its colonies, to access advanced technologies, and to thrive as part of the galactic community. But he also knew that if humanity backed down now, they would forever be branded as subservient. That is your choice, Chancellor, he replied. But humanity will not be coerced. We have endured isolation before, and we are prepared to do so again. Prepared? Threx echoed, a hint of mockery in his tone. Captain Cade, I fear you misunderstand the gravity of your decision. Humanity's fledgling colonies, its trade, its prosperity, all will wither without the Council's support. Perhaps, Cade said calmly, but Earth is built on more than trade and prosperity. We are built on resilience. We have fought for everything we have. And if you believe an embargo will force us into submission, then you truly do not understand humanity. Threx's expression twisted into something unreadable, a mixture of frustration and condescension. You speak boldly for a man whose species sits on the edge of insignificance. But I wonder, Captain, do you truly speak for all of humanity? Do your leaders share your fervor? Cade held his gaze. I stand here with the full authority of Earth's leadership. They support this decision, and they stand behind humanity's right to be free. Threx looked away, his mouth set in a tight line, as though he had tasted something bitter. After a moment, he waved a hand dismissively. Then so be it. You may leave, Captain. Earth's fate is sealed by its own stubborn pride. Cade inclined his head, calm but unyielding. Then let history record that humanity chose dignity over subservience. He turned and walked out of the chamber, feeling the eyes of the Council members on his back. He had made a statement, but he also knew what awaited him. As he left the chamber, he felt the enormity of the Council's threat settle heavily over him, pressing down like the weight of a star. Threx would not leave Earth untouched, and Cade knew they would need every ounce of their strength to withstand the coming isolation. Returning to the Resolute, Cade faced his crew, who watched him with anticipation. Captain? Torres asked quietly. What did they say? Cade looked at her, his expression resolute. They've imposed a full embargo on Earth. No trade, no support, no resources from the Council. A heavy silence followed his words, the implications settling over the room like a shroud. Then, after a beat, Cade spoke, his voice steady and filled with conviction. Prepare the Resolute for departure. If they wish to isolate Earth, then we'll show them exactly what humanity is capable of on its own. As the crew sprang into action, Cade looked out at the stars, feeling the weight of responsibility but also a quiet pride. Humanity was in uncharted territory now, but he knew one thing for certain: they would face whatever came next together, and they would not break. Back on Earth, news of the Galactic Council's embargo spread like wildfire. The reaction was swift, and it reached Captain Cade aboard the Resolute just as quickly. Across Earth and its colonies, anger simmered beneath the surface. The Council's embargo threatened to cripple the flow of resources and technology vital to humanity's survival on distant worlds. Earth's leaders issued statements of resilience, vowing to persevere, but Cade knew that speeches alone would not sustain their people. In the war room of the Resolute, Cade and his senior officers gathered once more, studying a map of Earth's colonies and supply chains projected onto the table. Small red icons marked the points where Council patrols were now stationed, blocking trade routes and isolating outposts. Lieutenant Commander Ria Torres broke the silence, her voice tense. Our colonies on Europa, Titan, and Mars are the most vulnerable. They rely heavily on imported materials for air, food, and medicine, she said, tracing her finger over the map. If the Council's blockade continues, they could run out within months. Cade's gaze hardened as he looked at each glowing red icon. We can't allow that. We need to start supply runs, covert if necessary. And we'll need to find ways to make our colonies more self-sufficient. Torres nodded. I've already been in contact with civilian engineers who are brainstorming ways to ramp up food production and find substitutes for Council tech. Commander Patel chimed in, his tone skeptical. But even with that, we'll still be running on fumes soon. If we're going to defy the Council, we can't just play defense. We need allies, or at least sympathetic ears. Cade looked up, catching Patel's eye. Are you suggesting a rebellion? Not a rebellion, Patel replied, choosing his words carefully. But there must be other species within the Council that chafe under their control. If we can reach out to them, those who've been forced to submit to the Council's demands, maybe we can forge unofficial alliances. Small supply chains. Mutual aid. Cade considered this. The Council's reach was vast, but it couldn't control every system with the same iron grip. Many member species might secretly sympathize with Earth's stance, even if they dared not say it publicly. There was a chance, however slim, that humanity could find allies among the stars. He turned to Lieutenant Anderson, the communication officer. I want you to compile a list of potential contacts. Focus on species who joined the Council under similar circumstances, those forced to pay tribute for protection. Anderson nodded. Understood, Captain. I'll have something ready within the hour. Cade's gaze swept over his officers, their expressions a mixture of resolve and tension. We're not just facing a military blockade. This is about showing the galaxy that humanity can stand on its own, that we can survive without bending to their demands. If we succeed, we might inspire others to question the Council's authority. If we fail... He left the rest unspoken, but they all knew the stakes. Failure meant isolation and, potentially, extinction. Later, in his quarters, Cade pored over a list of Council member races that Anderson had compiled. It included species like the Xeran, a technologically advanced civilization known for their resistance against the Council's demands, and the Ever, a peaceful race that had struggled under the Council's regulations for centuries. Cade couldn't help but feel a glimmer of hope as he reviewed the data, though he knew reaching out to these species carried immense risk. Just as he was lost in thought, the door chime sounded, and Torres entered, her face tight with worry. Captain, we've just received a message, she said. Encrypted and sent on a secure, unregistered frequency. Cade raised an eyebrow. From whom? Torres handed him a data pad. They didn't identify themselves. But the message claims to be from someone within the Council. Someone sympathetic to Earth's cause. Cade's eyes narrowed as he scanned the message. It was brief and unsigned, but its contents made his heart race. Captain Cade, I am a voice within the Council who shares humanity's vision of independence. The Council's grip grows tighter each year, and more worlds find themselves crushed under its demands. I offer information that could aid Earth. If you are willing, meet me at the coordinates below, in the Chloros Nebula. We must act quickly. Cade looked up, meeting Torres's steady gaze. This could be a trap. Or it could be our only chance, she replied. If someone within the Council is truly willing to help us, it might be the breakthrough we need. Cade considered the risks. The Chloros Nebula was a well-known no-man's land on the edge of Council-controlled space. A rendezvous there was risky, but it was far enough from patrolled areas that they might avoid detection. He made his decision. Set a course for the Chloros Nebula, he ordered. But keep our approach quiet. I don't want any unnecessary attention. The Resolute slipped into the Chloros Nebula hours later, its engines at minimal output to reduce its energy signature. The swirling purple and green gases of the nebula obscured the stars, casting an eerie light across the bridge as Cade and his officers waited, scanning the sensors for any sign of their contact. Anything on the scanners? Cade asked, his voice low. Nothing yet, Torres replied, eyes fixed on her console. Wait. I've got a small craft on approach. No identification. No visible weapons. Cade leaned forward. Open a channel. A soft click sounded, and then a voice came through, calm and unhurried. Captain Cade, I presume? I am Counselor Vane. I bring you information, though I can only speak briefly. Counselor Vane, Cade replied. Why risk reaching out to us? The voice on the other end hesitated, then continued. Because I, too, know the Council's oppression. My people were brought to heel years ago, and I have seen others suffer since. You are not the first to resist, Captain, but you are the first with the courage to openly defy. What can you tell us? Cade asked, his tone laced with urgency. There is a faction within the Council, Vane replied. They seek to maintain control at all costs. They are aware of your resistance, and they are planning a demonstration of force, a message to crush your spirit before your defiance spreads. What kind of demonstration? Cade asked. A strike against Earth, Vane said grimly. An orbital blockade, to be enforced by a fleet that far surpasses yours in strength. They aim to cripple Earth, to make an example of humanity. Cade felt a chill run down his spine. When? Within 2 weeks. I have relayed this information at great risk to myself, Captain. My position shields me for now, but that protection is limited. Cade's mind raced. Then we have 2 weeks to prepare. Indeed. But know this, there are others like me. Should you succeed in showing the Council that defiance is possible, we may yet find a way to stand with you. Until then, you must survive. The line went silent, and the small ship vanished into the swirling clouds of the nebula. Cade looked at his officers, their faces pale but determined. We have 2 weeks, he said. Let's make sure Earth is ready. As the Resolute turned and prepared to make the jump back to Earth, Cade felt a renewed fire in his chest. They had allies, however distant, and now they had a chance to turn the Council's own tactics against them. Captain Elias Cade stood on the bridge of the Resolute, staring out at the vast expanse of space through the reinforced glass. Earth hung in the distance, a blue-green beacon in the void, beautiful yet vulnerable. The urgency of Counselor Vane's warning was like a drumbeat in his mind. The Council would launch an orbital blockade to cripple Earth within 2 weeks. Cade had a single chance to prepare, and he knew that chance was slipping by. Status report, he ordered, turning to Commander Patel. Patel leaned over his console, scanning the updates from Earth and the nearby colonies. We've already begun evacuation protocols on our outermost stations. Civilian traffic is being routed to Earth or to nearby safe zones in case of a full-scale blockade. Cade nodded, then looked over at Lieutenant Commander Ria Torres. What about planetary defenses? Torres's brow furrowed. The primary orbital stations are online, but they won't hold against a sustained assault by Council forces. We've rerouted all available ships for defense, but most of our fleet was built for exploration, not warfare. We'll make do, Cade replied, trying to keep his voice steady. We need to use every advantage Earth has. Whatever weaknesses the Council sees in us, we'll turn those into strengths. He activated the ship's comms, opening a channel to the leaders of Earth's colonies and representatives on the planet's surface. Their faces flickered to life on the screen, a diverse mix of human officials, each one bearing the weight of the situation in their expressions. Ladies and gentlemen, Cade began. The Council plans to enforce their embargo by force. In less than 2 weeks, they'll send a blockade to isolate Earth entirely. We have no choice but to prepare ourselves for what's coming. Minister Alvarez, Earth's senior representative, nodded grimly. Do we have confirmation on the size of their fleet? Intelligence suggests a small strike force, at least initially, likely led by vessels designed to intercept and detain rather than destroy. They want to intimidate us first. We can all resolve before committing more forces. The Prime Minister of Mars Colony, Lydia Chin, spoke up. Then we must prepare for a show of force ourselves. If they're expecting a passive Earth, we need to make sure we're ready to push back. Cade nodded, his respect for Mars's fortitude growing. Exactly. We've already ordered orbital defense platforms to be retrofitted for combat. We're turning any available vessels into makeshift defense ships. The Council expects compliance. We'll give them resistance instead. Another official, Admiral Samir Khan of the Europa Fleet, leaned forward, his expression resolute. My crews are already working double shifts to retrofit our exploratory vessels with missile and laser arrays. It's rudimentary, but it will at least give us a fighting chance. If we can delay their forces in orbit, that could give our defense systems on the ground time to strike back. That's exactly what we need, Admiral, Cade said. This is about survival. Every second we buy gives us time to adapt and improvise. Torres cut in. We're also working on communications cloaking. If we can disrupt the Council's command links, we might be able to confuse or even scatter their forces when they approach. Cade glanced at her with approval. Good. If we can interfere with their communications, that might give us the edge. We're fighting a force with superior numbers and technology. We have to make every move count. A sense of unity settled over the faces on the screen, determination hardening their expressions. Earth had faced threats before, but this was different. They weren't just defending their lives, they were defending their right to exist without submission. After the meeting ended, Cade and his officers worked tirelessly, coordinating defense efforts, preparing for the inevitable assault. When they finally took a break, Cade found himself in the ship's observation deck, gazing out at Earth below. The blue and green swirls of the planet held a new meaning for him now. It was more than just his home. It was what he was fighting for. Torres joined him, breaking the silence. We've got people working across the colonies, Captain. Engineers, scientists, even civilians. They're all pitching in to make sure Earth can stand against whatever the Council throws at us. Cade gave her a small, grateful nod. Humanity has a way of coming together when it counts. We've survived because we never stopped pushing forward, even when we were told to accept defeat. Torres's gaze grew distant. Do you think we can actually win, Captain? Not just survive, but win. We don't need to win a war, Cade replied, his tone measured. We just need to survive long enough to make them reconsider. To show them that humanity isn't a species they can intimidate into submission. Torres's shoulders relaxed a bit, a spark of hope rekindling in her eyes. Then we'll give them everything we've got. The following days saw Earth and its colonies mobilize on a scale unprecedented in human history. The vast spaceports of Mars Colony turned into defense hubs, converting transport ships into armored vessels. Europa's icy stations buzzed with activity as scientists repurposed research satellites into communications disruptors. Civilians on Earth volunteered in droves, working around the clock in factories to produce weapons, armor, and any technology that might be needed to withstand the Council's forces. Cade spent each hour aboard the Resolute, overseeing the preparations. He reviewed strategy with Admiral Khan, fine-tuned communications cloaking with Torres, and coordinated supply routes with Commander Patel. The crew worked without rest, their resolve mirroring Cade's own determination. One night, as the bridge crew prepared to run another simulation, a voice crackled over the comms, urgent and strained. This is Lieutenant Hart on the frontier. We've picked up a council vessel crossing into our sector. It's a scout, lightly armed, but it looks like they're mapping our defenses. Cade stiffened. Hart, don't engage. Track them, but keep your distance. If they're mapping our defenses, we'll need to adjust our positioning. A silence hung on the line, then Hart responded. Understood, Captain. We'll maintain a safe distance and report any further movement. As the call ended, Cade's jaw clenched. This was a reminder of how close the Council's grip was. Every move had to be calculated, every resource accounted for. If they could outmaneuver even a single part of the Council's initial forces, they'd have a better chance when the main fleet arrived. As the 2-week mark loomed, the galaxy's eyes turned toward Earth. Rumors of the Council's impending strike circulated among the colonies, and whispers of rebellion reached far-flung outposts where Earth's defiance was met with admiration and fear. The night before the anticipated arrival of the Council's blockade, Cade gathered his senior officers for one last meeting. He looked around the room, meeting each of their gazes. We're ready, he said, his voice steady. They may come with superior firepower, but we have something they don't. We have a united people willing to stand against tyranny. And we'll show them what it means to fight for freedom. Each officer nodded, their faces filled with the same steely resolve. Cade could feel the weight of history bearing down on them, the pressure of knowing they were standing on the edge of something far greater than themselves. Tomorrow, Cade continued, we face the unknown. But no matter what happens, we stand together. Earth and its people will not kneel. We will not be silenced. With one last look at his officers, Cade dismissed them. As they returned to their stations, Cade took a deep breath, steeling himself for the battle ahead. This was it. They were ready. In the silence of the bridge, Cade whispered a promise to himself, and to Earth. Let them come. Chapter 5: The Siege Begins. The first Council ships appeared in the distant black like ominous shadows, their sleek, metallic hulls catching the light of distant stars. Captain Elias Cade watched from the bridge of the Resolute as the massive vessels approached, each one a symbol of the Council's power and authority. Earth had never seen anything like it. Lines of dreadnoughts, flanked by smaller attack cruisers and an array of fighters, stretched out as far as Cade's scanners could detect. He took a steadying breath, reminding himself of all they prepared. The hours spent rallying Earth's defenses, the last-minute strategies with his officers, the promises he'd made to hold this line. This was what it all came down to. The Council had arrived, and now, humanity would answer. Status report, he ordered, eyes fixed on the approaching fleet. Lieutenant Anderson spoke up from the communication console. All defense systems on Earth are operational. Mars Colony and Europa stations report they're ready for coordinated strikes. Civilian transports are out of the conflict zones, either in orbit or under cloaking. Commander Patel added, all available ships are in formation, Captain. Our fighters are primed to intercept incoming Council vessels. Everyone's waiting for your command. Cade nodded, his expression set. Patch me through to the fleet. The bridge filled with the faint buzz of open comm channels as Cade's voice echoed across Earth's defenses and the interstellar ships preparing to engage. Men and women of Earth, he began, his voice calm but powerful. Today we stand united against an empire that believes it can dictate our future. They have come to our doorstep with threats, with intimidation, and with power they believe we cannot match. But they have underestimated us. He took a breath, letting the weight of his words sink in. This is not just a battle for Earth. This is a stand for every world that has suffered under their control, for every species forced to submit. They are here to test our resolve, and we will show them what humanity is made of. He paused before giving the order. All units, prepare for engagement. Earth stands with you. Let's show them why. As his words faded, the bridge fell silent. Cade met the determined gazes of his officers, his own heart pounding in sync with the anticipation around him. With a curt nod, he signaled Lieutenant Torres. Begin the assault. Full defensive maneuvers, and initiate our comms interference. The first shots rang out, brilliant streaks of light against the vast darkness. Earth's orbital defense platforms launched a volley, aiming for the lead dreadnoughts, while Earth's fighter squadrons darted forward to intercept the waves of Council drones that were now breaking away from the main fleet. Explosions bloomed across the void as drones and interceptors collided, lighting up the black in a deadly dance of strategy and fire. In the heat of the battle, Cade watched as the Council's vessels pressed forward, pushing through Earth's initial defenses with chilling precision. The Council had trained for years in such encounters, and their experience was apparent. But Earth's defenders fought with something different, something raw and unyielding, a drive to protect everything they had ever known. Commander Patel pointed to a new set of icons flashing on the tactical display. "Captain, it looks like their second wave is forming on the outer perimeter. They're using the dreadnoughts to shield the cruisers, who are taking aim at our primary orbital stations. Have Europa's interceptors move in for a flanking maneuver," Cade ordered. "Keep those cruisers occupied. And Torres, activate the comms disruption sequence." Torres worked quickly, fingers flying over her console as Earth's communications network unleashed a coordinated pulse across the Council's frequencies. The effects were immediate. Council formations wavered, and their fighters hesitated, the gaps in their communication leaving them vulnerable. It was the opening Earth's defenders had hoped for. "Send in the third wave of fighters," Cade commanded. "Take advantage of the break in their coordination." From every side, Earth's ships swarmed, surrounding the Council vessels in a relentless assault. Beams of light sliced through the darkness, while missiles exploded against hulls, forcing the Council ships to adjust, realign, and scatter. Council forces were disciplined, yes, but the fierce unpredictability of Earth's defenders was beginning to turn the tide. As the minutes bled into hours, the battle only intensified. Cade's focus remained unwavering, despite the growing fatigue among his crew. Reports of damages poured in from every station, but each loss seemed to ignite a deeper resolve in the remaining forces. "They're regrouping," Torres said, her voice tinged with urgency. "The Council is sending in reinforcement dreadnoughts from the rear. They're adjusting their strategy." Cade's mind raced. The Council was shifting to a new approach, likely intending to create an impenetrable perimeter around Earth and crush the resistance from within. They would continue to apply pressure until Earth's forces broke under the strain. "Commander Patel," Cade called out, "initiate the decoy maneuver. Deploy our remaining cloaked drones on the perimeter and target the lead dreadnoughts. Make them think we're staging a full assault in Sector 7. Patel grinned, catching on immediately. "A diversion, to lure them out of position." "Exactly," Cade confirmed. "If they're focused on what they think is an assault, it'll give us room to regroup and strike at their core." The plan unfolded seamlessly. The Council's dreadnoughts, spotting the surge of activity in Sector 7, began to maneuver, thinning their forces near the other sectors. It was the opportunity Earth's forces needed. With the Council fleet momentarily scattered, Cade gave the order for a concentrated assault on their lead command ship. "All units, focus fire on the command vessel. If we can disable or destroy it, the Council's chain of command will be severely weakened." A barrage of missiles, lasers, and plasma rounds streaked toward the massive command ship, impacting its shields with relentless force. One by one, the Council's defensive layers began to collapse. The shields flickered, then dropped entirely. Earth's fighters closed in, exploiting the opening with precision strikes. Finally, in a thunderous explosion, the Council's command ship burst apart, fragments scattering through space as shockwaves rippled across the Council's fleet. The sudden loss of their command vessel sent shockwaves through the remaining ships, creating an opportunity for Earth's forces to press the attack. The morale of Earth's fighters surged as they watched the debris of the once mighty Council vessel drift into the void. For the first time, it felt like they could win. Patel glanced at Cade, his expression victorious. "They're in disarray, Captain. We might actually have them on the run." Cade allowed himself a moment of satisfaction, but he knew better than to let his guard down. "Stay sharp, everyone. They might still have one last trick up their sleeve." As if on cue, a fresh wave of Council reinforcements emerged from hyperspace, the hulking forms of yet more dreadnoughts blocking out the stars. Cade's stomach clenched, but he refused to let fear show on his face. "We've shown them we won't back down," he said, voice steady. "Now we keep pushing. If they thought this would be easy, let's make sure they leave with more scars than they bargained for." The final phase of the battle unfolded in brutal silence, a clash of wills as Earth's forces defended their home with everything they had left. Against all odds, humanity's resilience held, forcing the Council to reassess their approach. After hours of fierce fighting, the Council's ships began a slow, tactical retreat, their commanders realizing that Earth was not the easy conquest they had expected. As the last of the Council's vessels disappeared into the void, a victorious cheer rose through Earth's calms. Cade finally allowed himself to exhale, his muscles relaxing as the tension of the battle faded. "We did it," Torres whispered, awe in her voice. "They're gone." Cade met the gazes of his officers, a proud smile crossing his face. "Today, Earth proved it's not a world to be controlled. We fought for our right to exist freely, and will continue to do so. They'll think twice before they try this again." Amid the quiet aftermath of victory, Cade knew that humanity had taken its first step toward a future where they could stand strong on their own terms. And for the first time, he felt a true sense of hope for what lay ahead.